you guys for joining today. It's awesome to see you again. And we are going to talk about product discovery. And I think there is a lot we can talk about. Definitely very interesting topics, very trendy as well. But maybe before we dive into those, we should define what is product discovery and what is the essence of product discovery.
Product discovery, it's such an interesting word, right? Like, why does this even exist? Like, how is it different than research, to be honest, right? I guess product discovery became a thing because as product managers or development teams, we are so focused on just building products, maybe to requirements or some research that was gathered some time ago. So I think product discovery was like a necessary term to come up with in order to do this kind of continuous discovery as you're building the product. Like it being agile, trying to figure out, are we actually building the right thing? Does this product still make sense? Should we pivot? Should we do something? So I think that is like product discovery. It's a terminology that talks about research and being in contact with users, creating feedback loops to figure out if your strategy and your product roadmap kind of still makes sense. So you should pivot.
I also see it as a sort of opportunity of reset, because sometimes as product managers we sort of get inside this like loop of, so we know what the problem is that we're trying to solve, and then we try to solve it, and then we try to solve it, and then we try to solve it. But sometimes we get so like hyper focused on like one issue to resolve that as soon as you like take a step back and talk to some users and try to figure out what they're dealing with and what their problems are, you kind of sometimes find out that the problem that you have been trying to solve is maybe not the pivotal thing that will get, that will raise adoption for the product, or that will up retention. So maybe that's not what you need to focus on right now. So the product discovery framework kind of lets you reevaluate if what you're working on is actually the right thing that you need to focus on, or focus the entire company's resources right now.
And I think product discovery is great if you already have some kind of product that you're developing and you want the continuous feedback, or you want the feedback loops, and you need a process for doing that, talking to customers and this stuff. I think product discovery can be super dangerous if you're building a new product or you're bringing something to market, because then you have this mindset. Someone told you at some point, don't go into solution mode. Work on the problem. You need to figure out what the problem is. Don't worry about solutions. And then you end up being in discovery for way too long. That's what I see. Like there's this fear. I almost see this fear of building the product, oh no, then it's going to be biased. It's not going to be the right thing. We need to really work on the problem. And then you end up never building anything, and never bringing anything to customers. So it's almost the opposite of MVP and lean startup.
I'm very happy to hear that you brought that up, because I actually just before that wanted to ask something about, how do you balance creativity and data, right? And I think for me, it's been very hard to hit the right balance between data-driven insights and creativity, and just like thinking out of the box and imagining all of these awesome solutions. So what are really the challenges and opportunities in balancing both data and creativity in your experience?
I mean, I don't see a difference personally between data and creativity, because one informs the other, from what I like, from how I see it, because you can't be creative in a complete void without coming up with like wacky solutions that aren't like really grounded, and you can't only answer the data says that this step is complicated, so we need to simplify this step, without coming up with some sort of creative resolution for that problem. So I think like both have to coexist in order to inform a better product or create a better product experience. That's kind of my 2 cents about it.
I think, Seb, you said something that when you're working on new product ideas,
Mhm.
it's often hard to also work with data and have data. So I guess it's this catch-22 that you don't know. You want to gather data, you want to know, you want to be informed, but at the same time,
Mhm.
you might not have so much time to do that. So then what do you do? And then there is this fear, and I have experienced that as well, this fear of like just doing something, launching it, and then seeing how it goes. And then yes, it might have failed, but let's learn from it and then redo it again and launch. So do you have anything in mind or any experience of how to handle these type of situations? Because I mean, I've been in that, and I really want to ship something, but
Yeah.
it's hard. And then there's also organizational resistance of it because, oh, but we don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the way how we're going to know. So actually, as a product manager, sometimes convincing and pushing the team and the organization to make that leap,
Yeah.
it's what I have found challenging, for example.
And I completely agree. And I was thinking while you're talking, and I think there's a fear of building things and putting them out there in front of customers. And there's a fear of once you build something, you cannot change it and it's there. But I think it actually comes down to the culture of people are afraid of failing because it feels like when you put something out there and it's not the right solution straight away, you have failed, which is why you need to be in discovery mode for a long time before you actually put something out there. And that is completely wrong, right? Because what you actually want to do is like you did in the old days, you want to prototype, you want to create a lot of things and put it in front of users, but they're not the final solutions and they might be maybe sub solutions. So I think you need that culture of we're testing, we're validating. This is not the final product. It's going to change a million times. And then having that kind of double diamond that turns into a triple, quadruple, infinite double diamond, where you keep building, learning, building, learning, building, learning, and realizing the product is never finished. Maybe like it's not a product. It's a value proposition, and the market keeps changing. So you also need to keep changing it. But if you're building something, this is going to be a long speak. Sorry, but if you're building something new, I think what you need to do is make some decisions, be aware of the decisions you make, write them down, think of them as not being final, and then be okay with killing your darlings and your ideas, like burn them and then starting over while you're trying to figure out what is the right solution to the problem you've identified.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the whole concept of final product is something that we need to let go of as as the product community, because there is never a final product. There is no product that is how it is going to look forever. And and if you look at all the Apple was not like it was not always an iPhone. It was not always it went through so many iterations and so many changes in technology, changes in user base, in what is possible and what what markets you can approach. Like the idea of this is what we're going to launch and this will be the product, the end. There is no the end, like unless the company closes down the final product.
But do you agree, Elena? Like in those organizations you've seen, is it? I don't know. I would call it this culture where failing is not accepted, or that there's a fear of failing. Did you agree with that? Would you coin it that way, or would you say it's something different?
Yeah, I think it. Yes, it's probably around that there is a fear of failing. I think there is an extra problem to that it's also not even admitting that there is fear of failing. So what I'm saying is that probably is because I don't think I don't think in these organizations the people there, they have been actually vocal enough and say, well, we are afraid that this is going to really go bad and we don't want to go bad because it is yeah, we just I have not heard that really like coming out. And maybe there is more nuances to that. It's not only it's, I think it's something, maybe culture and ways of working, something that now and now it's been picking up, and it's picked up like probably a long time ago, because some of the very successful companies, they have gone through that, right? Like through basically launching, failing. I mean, look at Apple, and like how they basically like entered as well the market, and all, like their story and many other stories like that. It's just like, yeah, you go in, you fail, then you try again, and then you fail, and then eventually you might succeed.
So something that worked really well for me in a B2B setting was, let's not try to come up with a solution, but we have the problem. We identify a few B2B customers that we have a strong relationship with, and we say, hey, do you want to work together in a kind of a working group? And then we try to fix this problem, and you'll be the first user, so you get to try it for free or very cheaply, and then we slap this beta kind of thing on it. And then that actually allowed us to avoid the fear of building, because like if we could prototype it, it doesn't cost so much to build. I think that's also the problem sometimes, that people don't want to build because it seems costly, and the developer's time is much more costly than the designers and the product managers for some reason, right? Because we have a lack of developers often. But that actually that helped me to come up with something. The problem then was whether or not we had built a product they were willing to pay for, but that comes kind of later. But I think that was quite nice that we needed to put some words on it and say, this is beta, this is a working group together, we're trying to figure this out. It's not a product, we're not building a solution for you like we did in the old days.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I have also experienced something similar, also of like convincing, of getting like, let's just get a prototype, or like this very raw even version of that, be our beta user, just test it out, give us your feedback, put this thing live, and see how it goes. And I think that definitely could help. But I'll say it again, I have seen resistance, or like companies are afraid of doing that. And I think the kind of weird, because I feel that maybe bigger organizations are a little bit more brave in that regard than sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's my experience recently, but it's like small organizations, but that I feel like they don't have so much to lose, maybe that they are more resistant of like, let's just try out something. But one thing while you were talking, and also from before, I thought about when we do product discovery, how we collaborate with the rest of the organization, right? Because I think one of the biggest challenge for me, it's been like also collaborating and making sure that it's not only like driven by, let's say, the product manager. I mean, could be driven, and it's fine to be driven by, I guess, anyone, but it's like how inclusive and how are you able to collaborate with the marketing team, with engineering, with sales. I think basically with everyone, because your product discovery, it's also your path to define your strategy. So what are the areas that you're looking at? What information can you gather? So how have you been doing that? I guess that's also my question, like any learnings you can share.
I can say that on my end, like the key to a successful product discovery starts with getting stakeholders on board. That you cannot you cannot put any resources, or you cannot put aside any people from your team unless management is on board, unless the CEO says like this is a great time to do it. Let's invest some resources into that. And actually in terms of getting the working with other people within the team or the company, I think personally my best product discovery experience was actually led by my product designer. She is the one who came in with a piece of data that she saw that she thought could be improved. And then we went out on user testing, and she made all the prototypes with Figma. So we had like live iterations with the users, changing stuff and prototyping kind of as we go along. And I think that was a super informative product discovery, just because it came with UX, as part of not just the ideation and prototyping, but also in identifying and defining the solution, because the problem itself was a user experience problem. So coming in with a user experience experts just made this whole discovery process, I think, 10 times better than it could have been with just me in front of a like Zoom recording and going back and trying to find people within the team to show the interviews to, just to get some of their feedback. And so I think that was a super experience for me, and really I'm very grateful for her to have brought this issue to the table, which was not very high on our agenda, and it was not very high on our company strategy, but as soon as we resolved it, it upped product adoption and actually activation. It almost doubled activation within the product, which I think that's no stakeholder will look at that and say, well, that was a waste of time. Like, that was super valuable.
I Sorry, do you want to go, Elena?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah,
one final thing is that part of that process was also involved getting devs excited about the solution, and as soon as devs were excited, like we got I think 4 or 5 different prototypes working, and we managed to roll out a solution within 3-4 weeks. And we kept changing it after that, and of course getting more feedback and evolving. But like, just going from we need to start a product discovery process to we have something live, like we deployed a solution, that was a 3-4 week process, which I think that was quite amazing.
nice. I think that process is spot on. Like, I was trying to reflect while you're talking on me, right? And I think, like, if you go back, lean startup is all about like getting to that prototype and then testing out your customers straight away. But Eric Ries built on top of Steve Blank, right? And if you go to the 4 steps to the epiphany, whatever that book is called, right? I think he talks about these customer discovery interviews first and then customer validation interviews afterwards. And I think that's actually a good way to look at it. It's a little bit like the double diamond again, right? Because you do the customer discovery first. If you have the means to talk to customers many times, right? You can talk more open-ended, trying to figure out what is the problem, what is it that they're looking for. You go back, you need to really reflect, take the user interviews, market research, everything, synthesize some solution, right? But then you need to go and build it and test it and put it in front of users and figure out, is this actually something they would want to have? So you need to do both. You need to do the research, synthesize the solution, build it, and then go and have it in front of customers to see their behavior. And that's back to the double diamond again, right? So it seems like there's something to this process, because more people are talking about it from different perspectives, either design or product management / startup.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the double down into, so we're talking about is the like the challenge definition solution diamonds, right? The oh, what's his name? Oh, I'm blanking out on his name now. Marty Kagan. Sorry, the Marty Kagan framework, right? So that's I think pretty much the Bible of product discovery at this point. That's kind of every product manager that I've been talking to has spoken about this like process of discovery within this framework. I think that's like the most popular framework at this point.
Yeah. If you have it, because I also feel like there's a lot of folks doing product discovery where, okay, we're customer centric. We go and listen to customers and then we build what they want. But like, do customers always know what they want? Not often, right?
No, but they're very vocal about what they don't want. And I think it's very interesting to use that to use customers or quantitative data as your guiding star with product discovery, because I think it has to include both quantitative and qualitative data. So using both the interviews where users tell you things, maybe they're on point things, and maybe they're just wishes that don't really have anything to do with the product, or that they won't actually use them if you developed it for them. I've done that many times. I've developed features that I thought the users, every user that I did user interviews with said, oh, I want this version, or I want this feature. And when you get 20, 30 people saying the same thing, you're like, oh, we have a really solid thing. Maybe we need a mobile version. Maybe we need an app. And then you spend 3 months in developing a mobile version, and then those 30 people use it, but no one else. So it's always, you have to have this balance of taking some feedback from users and using that to inform your decisions, but also using qualitative data. Using Mixpanel, using your analytics, using heat maps, and seeing what are issues within the product, and then trying to match those to what users are saying. I think that's kind of like a conversation that you need to have between the data and the users.
All right. So to wrap this up, would like to discuss what are the future trends, and of course, I would love to bring in, how do you think AI is going to impact and is impacting already product discovery?
Do you want to start, Omri?
Sure. I actually have used AI in my last product discovery, mostly for sentiment analysis. So when you have a bunch of feedback, or you have a lot of insights from customer success, taking that and putting that into an LLM and getting some sort of a sentiment about what users are thinking about the product, I think that was super helpful in just like starting to map out what sort of areas we need to focus on with product discovery. So I think that's something that AI solved, or saved a lot of time with work. I wouldn't start ideating with ChatGPT yet, but maybe one day. And I think we'll definitely find some ways of it, helping and informing the process. But I think product discovery has a lot of extra insight that I think AI can't at this point offer us. Maybe in a year, maybe in 6 months, who knows? Maybe ChatGPT 5 we'll shuffle everything and we'll be able to finally write PRDs. And but at this point, I think it's mostly an assistant to, to the discovery process.
Yeah, I think at this point right now, I mean, I also see it, and I think where it has helped me, and I see it other like product managers and companies are using it. It's a lot about market research. It's a lot about you analyzing user feedback. I think there is quite a bit as well with design, or I have not experienced, but I do see that there is a lot of tools and to basically enhance the design, and I guess like get it ready a little bit quicker than what we used to do. Yeah, I think a lot of what you said, but I'm actually just thinking like, but what more could be done? And I feel constantly that I'm behind the topic of AI and how we can use it, but it's just it's probably more and more things we'll be able to do. Yeah.
Honestly, what I think will be a great solution as soon as that is possible. Maybe it already is, but I've yet to see a good example of it. Is within scheduling, because I think with product discovery, my biggest issue is scheduling the tests, scheduling the user interviews, just getting like FaceTime with users. I think that's so time consuming. And I think if there will be a solution that will offer like a scheduling assistant for user discovery, I think that would be a huge thing. Like that would make things so much easier and get a lot more insight in. I think that's going to be.
I think that's spot on, because I don't think there's or at least I haven't seen a new trend in customer discovery or product discovery. I think what we want to do is just be faster. Like, it's expensive to do customer discovery. It takes time, cost money, resources. We want to, it's exactly what we talked about before. We want to put stuff in front of customers faster. We want to test more different things and then be able to analyze them in a non-biased way, right? And I think AI can help accelerate all of that. AI in prototyping, AI in scheduling, AI in analyzing data, AI in presenting data back to people, so more people are exposed to the findings. You can share them with the team, et cetera, et cetera. I think that is probably the new thing, or the thing that product managers should be aware of. Like, how can we accelerate and do more using better tools?
Spot on.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Yes. I think I've always like product discovery is just so time consuming. I completely agree with you, Seven. It can be so time consuming. And I'm also working right now with a designer that like he just wants to do, like a product designer, like people just want to do more and more discovery and research. And they were like, how much more research there is that you can do? You should take some decisions and just go with it. Of course, it has to be a calculated risk as well, right? So I really don't think it's about like, oh, let's just create something and just send it off, but it has to be a calculated risk and not get over your head of like researching, finding out. And we are, I think, now living in such a fast pace world that we cannot do the discovery that we used to do like even a year ago, or like 2 years ago, a year ago.
It's not very agile. It's not. There's a reason why Mark Zuckerberg says done beats perfect, and throw some spaghetti at the wall and work fast and break things. Whatever he said, right? It's the same.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to show people stuff that looks awful. It doesn't matter. And like, get insights fast, but remember why you're doing it and what you're testing for and what it means, and then do more stuff, like explore even more in the double diamond. You need to go broad in order to go narrow afterwards. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you very much. This has been, as usual, very insightful, and I'm looking forward to the next one.